Commander Rylan Ward had survived many battles before, but he had never seen a sky fall apart like this one. His dropship spiraled through burning clouds as alarms screamed around him. The moon below, once a quiet Vishari frontier outpost, was now a graveyard of metal and flame. Human and Vishari forces had clashed here only hours before, and both sides had paid dearly. Rylan gripped the controls with steady hands. He was known for a calm mind, even when everything else was exploding. The ship was dying, he knew it. Felt it, heard it, but he had one final goal. Land without leaving a crater where he used to be. The ground rushed up. He hit the eject sequence at the last possible second. The cockpit blew open, and the wind punched his body as he launched upward. His parachute snapped wide, jerking him hard. Below him, his dropship smashed into a rocky ridge and vanished in a bright bloom of fire. Rylan floated down, surrounded by drifting smoke and the faint echo of distant explosions. The war had not yet reached this part of the moon, but it soon would. Human command had already pulled back. The Vishari were reclaiming their world, and Rylan was alone behind enemy lines. He landed roughly on a slope of cracked stone. His ankle twisted, but nothing broke. He took a deep breath and spoke to himself, as he often did when the odds dipped into the impossible. Well, Rylan, another fine mess. He checked his gear. A half-dead comm unit, one emergency ration pack, a water filter, and a compact sidearm with 2 full charge cells. Not great, but better than nothing. He began walking. The air smelled of scorched metal, dust, and something sharp that clung to the back of his throat. Vishari architecture littered the valley, below white towers cracked open like eggshells. He needed shelter. Somewhere quiet, where he could think. But fate had other plans. As he stepped over the shattered remains of a wall, he heard its soft, trembling breathing. Rylan froze. He slowly lowered himself, pressing a hand against the rubble. Under the broken pieces of a collapsed roof, something shifted. Very slightly. Very weakly. It wasn't human, but it was alive. He pushed aside a slab of metal. It scraped loudly, and the breathing quickened in panic. A small voice, high and frightened, whispered something in the Vishari language too quick for Rylan to understand. "It's okay," he said gently, even though he doubted whoever was beneath the rubble knew human speech. "I'm not here to hurt you." He kept moving the rubble until he finally exposed a small figure curled into a tight ball. Large silver eyes stared up at him, filled with fear, pain, and confusion. The child looked no older than 7 or 8 in human years, though it was always hard to tell with alien species. Her pale blue skin was dusted with powdered stone, her long ears folded down in distress. A fresh cut glowed faintly across her forehead. Vishari blood shimmered like tiny sparks under the skin, catching the light. Rylan felt a knot tightening in his chest. A child. Alone. Injured. Terrified. Enemy or not, this was wrong. The child tried to crawl backward, but her leg was pinned beneath a chunk of metal. She winced, trembling. "Hold still," Rylan said softly. He crouched and carefully shifted the slab. It was heavy, but he managed to move it enough to free her. She flinched and made a faint, pained sound. Rylan's heart clenched. "Easy. Easy. I've got you." He reached out his hand slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. She hesitated, then touched him lightly with trembling fingers. Her skin was cool, smooth, and shaking. Rylan exhaled in relief. "Let's get you out of here." He lifted her carefully. She clung to the front straps of his vest, too weak to resist. As he moved, he spotted a carved necklace around her neck, a Vishari symbol of family. She had not been a soldier, not even close. She had probably been living in this outpost when the battle tore everything apart. Rylan scanned the horizon. Smoke trails rose in the distance. Patrols would be sweeping the area soon. Human command required him to leave enemy miners for official recovery forces, mostly to avoid diplomatic disasters. But this moon had been evacuated. There were no recovery forces. No medics. No safe shelters. No survivors except maybe pockets like this. If he left her here, she would die. "Looks like you and I are a team now," he murmured. The child blinked up at him, not understanding the words, but the tone calmed her. He carried her toward the remains of a low-supply depot. The structure had half collapsed, but one section was still stable. He slipped inside and set her down on a blanket of old storage canvas. "Let's fix that leg," he said quietly. He examined her carefully. Nothing broken, just badly bruised. The cut on her forehead needed cleaning. He used his water filter to drip purified water onto cloth scraps and gently wiped the wound. The child hissed in pain but stayed still, watching his face with wide, uncertain eyes. When he finished, he offered her a small piece of his ration bar. She sniffed it suspiciously, then hesitantly took a bite. Her eyes widened slightly. It was sweet. Human survival bars always were. She ate the rest faster. "Good," Ryland said with a small smile. "You'll feel better with some food in you." "Quote." She touched her chest. "Kira." Her voice was weak, but clear. Ryland froze. Your name is Kira?" She nodded slowly. He pointed to himself. "Ryland." Her silver eyes studied him, as if storing the name in her thoughts. She repeated it softly. "Ryland." A warmth spread in his chest, unexpected, but welcome. The child trusted him enough to say his name. That meant something. Ryland leaned back and thought. He needed extraction. Getting off this moon alone was already nearly impossible. With a child, an enemy child, it became 10 times harder. But leaving her was not an option. He peered outside the depot's cracked entrance. In the distance, faint blue lights flickered. Vishari scout drones. They were searching. Likely for survivors or threats. If they found him, they would assume the worst. He turned to Kira. "We have to stay hidden. Understand?" She didn't understand the words, but she understood his expression. She nodded and curled closer to him. As the hours passed, the sounds of patrols grew louder. Ryland stayed alert, listening to every step, every hum of passing drones. Each time he heard them draw too near, his hand hovered over his sidearm not to fire, but to be ready if they discovered them. Kira slept fitfully beside him, whimpering during nightmares. Every time she jolted awake, she looked for him. And every time, he was there. Night fell over the moon, and a faint violet glow spread across the ground. The Veshari star cast an eerie hue through the ruined structures. Ryland could not sleep. He kept watch, thinking through plans. Only one made sense: reach the old mining tunnels on the far side of the valley. If he could get inside before the patrols swept the region, he could hide long enough to call for an emergency extraction signal. But traveling with a child, especially a wounded one, meant moving slowly. Very slowly. He sighed. "We'll need to leave before dawn." Kira looked up, blinking sleep from her eyes. Ryland smiled gently. "You're safe for now, but we'll need to move soon." She tilted her head and reached out to touch the glowing device on his wrist, a small display of human star maps. She traced a star cluster with delicate fingers. Ryland watched her and felt something inside him shift. This war had taught him to see the Veshari as enemies, threats, strangers, but this child, she was just a scared survivor of the same chaos that had taken everything from humans as well. He whispered, mostly to himself, "We shouldn't be enemies." Kira didn't understand, but she leaned her head against his arm in a gesture of trust. Outside, a distant Veshari officer barked orders. Patrol sounds grew louder again. The search was tightening. Ryland tensed. It wouldn't be long before someone wondered why this region remained quiet. He tightened the straps of his vest, adjusted Kira's makeshift bandage, and prepared to move. No matter what happened, he would protect her. Even if the entire Veshari Dominion came looking for the Terran ghost who dared to rescue one of their own. High Matriarch Cyril Vora stood inside the command chamber of the Veshari flagship Silent Crown, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The glow of holoscreens reflected off her pale blue skin as she studied the latest reports from the moon below. Her expression was sharp, controlled, and cold. For years, Cyril had been the face of Vaishari discipline, the warrior leader who believed humans were reckless beings guided by emotion rather than logic. She had lost soldiers, cities, and even her own partner to the Terran conflict. Her heart had hardened into a shield of iron. But today, that shield cracked, because today, she learned her daughter might still be alive. Kira, her only child, the small, bright-eyed girl who once carved shapes into crystal tiles and laughed at Cyril's stern posture. Rumors had begun spreading through the patrols. A lone human soldier seen carrying a Vaishari child, a Terran protecting her, a ghostly figure moving through ruins with a tiny girl clinging to his vest. At first, she dismissed the reports. Impossible. Humans didn't save enemy children. But then a scout drone transmitted a brief recording. A towering human in damaged armor lifting a small Vaishari girl from rubble. The child's necklace glowed under dusty twilight. Cyril's breath had stopped. The necklace, she recognized it. She had carved that symbol herself. Kira was alive. And she was with a human. Her heart clenched with fear and rage. "Commander," an officer spoke from behind her. "Our patrols are closing in on the outpost region. Should we engage on sight?" Cyril didn't answer immediately. Her calm voice finally broke the silence. "No," she said. "Bring them to me alive. The child and the human." Her officers exchanged confused glances. Cyril didn't care. She needed answers. On the moon's surface, Commander Rylan Ward guided Kira through the darkness of the ruined valley. The night wind was sharp, carrying ash and the faint hum of distant engines. He kept one arm under her legs as she rested against his chest, too tired to walk. "We're almost there," he whispered. "Just past those rocks." He doubted she understood the words, but the gentle tone comforted her. She closed her silver eyes, her head resting lightly against his armor. The mining tunnels were not far now, but the patrols were getting closer. Rylan felt the vibration of engines through the ground before he heard them. A column of Vaishari light tanks moved in the distance, their cold searchlights sweeping across shattered buildings. He ducked behind a broken pillar, holding Kira close. She trembled, but made no sound. "Good girl," he whispered. When the tanks passed, he moved again, careful and quiet. The faint violet glow of the star above softened as dawn approached. He reached the mouth of the mining tunnels just as the horizon began to fade from purple to blue. The entrance was a jagged wound in the cliffside, half buried by fallen stone, but there was enough space for him to slip inside. The interior was cool and dark. His visor light flickered on, revealing stone walls carved by machines decades ago. He set Kira down on a flat rock. She looked exhausted, but her eyes followed his movements closely. "You did well," Rylan said gently. "Rest. I'll keep watch." Kira tugged lightly at his arm, pointing to his water filter. Rylan smiled and gave her a small sip. She blinked gratefully. As she settled into sleep again, Rylan finally had a moment to think. He was deep in enemy territory, with a child who belonged to one of the Vaishari's most powerful families. If found, he would be seen as a kidnapper or worse. But letting her go alone meant certain death. He had chosen the only path his conscience allowed. Still, he had no plan for what came next. Meanwhile, aboard the Silent Crown, Cyril Vora prepared to land on the moon herself. A voice crackled over the comm. "Matriarch, your presence is not required on the surface. Our forces—" "My daughter is down there," Cyril cut in. "And a human soldier has her. I will not trust this matter to reports." Her tone was quiet, but final. The dropship descended through smoky clouds as Cyril stared out the viewport. Her sharp eyes scanned the landscape, burned buildings, overturned metal, the wounds of war. She hated this war. She hated the humans who started it, but she hated herself even more for believing it would ever keep her people safe. The dropship touched down with a hiss of pressure. Vaishari guardians stepped out first, weapons raised. Cyril followed, her long coat brushing the ash-covered ground. She activated a handheld tracker programmed to detect Kira's necklace. A soft light pulsed it had found a signal. "Move," she ordered. Her unit advanced toward the valley. Rylan sensed trouble before he heard it. He stood at the tunnel entrance, peering into the dim morning light. The faint thrum of engines grew louder. He lifted Kira gently. Time to go. He carried her deeper into the tunnels, moving quickly but quietly. The tunnels were a maze, but one branch led to an old ventilation shaft that could get them closer to the north ridges. His boots echoed against stone. Kira clung to him. Suddenly, a beam of blue light cut across the darkness. Rylan spun, shielding Kira. A Veshari drone hovered in the tunnel mouth, its thin lenses glowing as it scanned him. Not good, he muttered. He sprinted down the passage. The drone followed, its alarm shriek echoing. Kira, hold tight. He ducked into a side tunnel just as the drone fired a stun blast. The wall behind him sparked. He had one shot left in his sidearm. He didn't want to use it. Shooting a Veshari drone could escalate everything. But if it hit him while he carried Kira, he aimed and fired. The energy bolt slammed into the drone, sending it crashing to the floor. It sparked, twitched, and went silent. Rylan took a breath. That'll bring them faster. He turned and stopped. At the end of the tunnel stood a group of Veshari soldiers. Dozens of them. Weapons raised, but their eyes were not on him. They were on the child in his arms. Rylan slowly lifted his hands, showing he held no weapon. Kira whimpered and buried her face in his chest. A path opened between the soldiers, and High Matriarch Serral Vora stepped through. Her presence filled the space, tall, commanding, every motion precise. Her silver eyes locked onto Kira, and for a brief moment, all the steel in her expression melted into raw emotion. Kira, Serral whispered. The child lifted her head. Her eyes widened. She reached out with trembling arms. Mother. The word was soft but clear. Rylan felt her small hands pull away from him. He slowly set her down. Kira limped forward, and Serral caught her in a fierce, shaking embrace. For the first time since the war began, Rylan saw a Veshari leader look human, not a commander, not an enemy, just a mother. But then, Serral lifted her gaze to Rylan. Her eyes hardened again, but not in hatred. In confusion. In disbelief. You saved her, she said quietly. Rylan nodded once. She needed help. Serral stared at him as if trying to understand a puzzle that made no sense. You are a human soldier, she said. You had every reason to leave her. Why didn't you? Rylan met her eyes. Because she's a child. Because she was hurt. Because saving her was the right thing to do, the soldiers murmured. They had never heard a human speak so plainly. Serral studied him for a long, silent moment. Then she said something no one expected. Not her soldiers, not Rylan, not even herself. You will come with us, she said softly. Not as a captive, but as the one who kept my daughter alive. Rylan exhaled slowly. His fate had changed in the span of a single heartbeat, and Kira's small hand slipped back into his holding tightly, refusing to let him go. Serral saw it, and something in her expression shifted again. Something dangerous, something curious, something that would change everything. Commander Rylan Ward expected to be treated like a prisoner. After all, he was a human soldier surrounded by armed Veshari warriors, deep inside enemy territory. But the moment Serral Vora, High Matriarch of the Dominion, spoke the words, not as a captive, everything changed. The tunnel remained tense. Rylan could feel dozens of eyes on him. Some hostile, others confused. He kept his hands visible, staying calm. Kira clung to his side, her small fingers wrapped tightly around his glove. Serral noticed this with a sharp, unreadable look. Bring them to the surface, she ordered. And stand down your weapons. Her soldiers obeyed, though many lowered their rifles only halfway. The air filled with murmurs as Rylan walked with Kira between the Veshari guards. Serral walked beside them, her long coat trailing behind her. She didn't speak, but her presence alone kept the soldiers from trying anything foolish. They stepped into the dawn light. The rising star cast a violet glow over the ruined valley. The smell of smoke still hung in the air. A transport vessel waited nearby. Sleek, elegant, unmistakably Veshari. The ramp lowered with a soft hum. Serral lifted Kira in her arms, holding her close. A mixture of relief and worry filled her expression. Kira rested her head against her mother's shoulder, exhausted but safe. Rylan hesitated at the bottom of the ramp. A Vishari soldier glared at him. "This is a trap. Humans never save our young," another muttered. "We should bind him." Sorel turned sharply. "No one touches him." Her voice cut through the air like a blade. The soldiers straightened immediately. Rylan exhaled a quiet breath. He didn't trust this situation. He'd be a fool if he did, but he wasn't afraid. Not with Sorel watching him so intently. He stepped onto the ramp. For the first time since the crash, he felt a strange sense of safety. The interior of the transport was smooth and bright, designed with curves and soft light, very different from the harsh corners and metal of human ships. Rylan sat where instructed, hands resting calmly on his legs. 2 guards stood behind him, but their weapons stayed lowered. Sorel laid Kira on a padded couch. Medics rushed forward, scanning her injuries. The moment they saw the bruises on her leg and the cut on her forehead, their faces tightened with worry. "She needs proper treatment on the flagship," one medic said. "We should depart immediately." Sorel nodded. She rested a gentle hand on Kira's cheek. "You are safe," she whispered. Kira smiled weakly and pointed to Rylan. Sorel followed her hand. Her eyes met Rylan's again, this time not with suspicion, but with something deeper: gratitude, curiosity, and something she had not felt toward a human in years: respect. The ship lifted off, engines humming softly. Rylan watched the moon's surface fall away through the viewport. "How did you find us?" he asked quietly. Sorel kept her gaze on Kira. "Her necklace. It carries a trace. Only a mother can activate it." Rylan blinked. "So you led the patrols yourself?" "I would cross a battlefield alone if it meant reaching my child," she replied simply. Rylan looked away, thinking. He understood that feeling. He wasn't a father, but he'd seen enough war to know the power of parental love. The silent crown soon appeared above them, a massive vessel shaped like a long crescent, glowing with blue symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Rylan had seen Vishari warships from a distance before. Seeing one up close made him appreciate why humanity feared them. The transport docked, the ramp lowered. Sorel lifted Kira again and exited first. Rylan followed, flanked by guards. The halls of the flagship were clean, elegant, filled with soft light. Vishari officers paused as Sorel walked by. Their eyes widened when they saw the human behind her. Many whispered. Some frowned. A few reached instinctively for their weapons until Sorel glared at them. Rylan stayed calm and silent. At the medical bay doors, Sorel stopped. She looked back at him. "You will wait outside," she said. "She needs treatment." Rylan nodded. "Take care of her." Sorel hesitated, as if surprised by the genuine concern in his voice. Then, she entered the bay with Kira, and the doors slid shut. Rylan remained in the hall, watched closely by guards. But the hostility in their eyes had softened just slightly. A long hour passed. Rylan remained still, leaning against the wall, hands folded. He didn't know what his fate would be, but worrying wouldn't change it. Then the doors opened. Sorel stepped out. Her daughter was safe. Rylan could see it in her face. The tension around her eyes had eased. Her shoulders had relaxed. "She is stable," Sorel said, "sleeping." "I'm glad," Rylan replied. Sorel studied him. "You risked your life." "Why?" Rylan shrugged gently. "She was alone. Scared. I couldn't leave her." Sorel tilted her head. "But you are a human soldier." "War doesn't change right and wrong," Rylan said quietly. "A child is a child." Those simple words struck something inside her. Something old. Something she thought the war had destroyed. "Walk with me," she said. The guards looked surprised, but Sorel's word was law. She led Rylan down the corridor. Crew members watched them with wide eyes. This was a sight no one had ever expected. Two-way, a human soldier walking beside their high matriarch, unbound, unafraid. They entered a private observation room with a wide window showing the stars. The room was silent, calm. Sorel faced him directly. "You saved the most important life in my world," she said. "I cannot ignore that. You don't owe me anything." Rylan replied. That is not correct, Sorel said softly. I owe you everything. Rylan didn't know what to say. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the soft glow of starlight filled the room, but suddenly, alarms blared. The calm shattered. A voice echoed through the ship's comms. Unidentified vessels approaching from the north sector. Not human. Not Vashari. Hostiles confirmed. Rylan's eyes sharpened. Scavenger mercenaries? Cyril nodded grimly. They gather around battlefields like vultures. They know a high-ranking child was lost on the moon. They must have tracked the signals. Rylan straightened. They'll try to board. They will try worse, Cyril said. They want ransom. Or power. The ship trembled slightly, an enemy blast hitting the outer shields. Cyril turned to Rylan. You are a soldier, she said. Will you fight? Beside us? Rylan looked at her without hesitation. I will fight to protect Kira. And anyone who wants to harm her. For the first time, Cyril gave him a small, honest smile. Then come. They ran through the corridor as the ship shook again. Vashari warriors rushed past them toward tactical stations. The hull lights dimmed to battle mode. Rylan reached the armory. Cyril gestured at a weapons rack. Take what you know how to use. Rylan found a kinetic rifle similar to human design. He checked the charge. Perfect. He grabbed it and met Cyril's gaze. We hold them off? He asked. We destroy them. Cyril corrected. The next minutes became a storm of motion. Boarding alarms rang. Metal clashed. Shouts echoed through the corridors. Rylan moved with precision, covering Vashari soldiers as they pushed back invaders. His aim was steady, his strikes efficient. The Vashari soldiers who once looked at him with distrust now saw him differently. He fought like a protector. Like one of them, Cyril fought beside him, her movements sharp and graceful. As a team, they were unstoppable human ingenuity and Vashari discipline blending with perfect timing. When the last of the scavenger mercenaries retreated, the ship fell silent again. Smoke drifted through the hall, bodies lay scattered, but the flagship still stood. Cyril turned to Rylan, breathing hard. You fought with honor. You protected your people, Rylan said. I protected the child who trusted me. Cyril stepped closer, her eyes soft but intense. You protected more than that, she said quietly. Rylan didn't understand what she meant yet, but he soon would, because the connection forming between them built through danger, courage, and shared purpose was only beginning, and the galaxy was about to change because of it. The battle aboard the Silent Crown had ended, but the air still carried the sharp smell of burned metal and energy fire. Rylan Ward stood in the middle of the corridor, breathing hard, his rifle still warm in his hands. Around him, Vashari warriors stepped over fallen scavenger mercenaries, checking the wounded and repairing damaged systems. He expected to be escorted away now that the danger had passed. Maybe locked in a room for security reasons or questioned by officers who still didn't trust him. But what happened instead surprised him. Vashari soldiers passed by him and nodded. Not in fear, not in suspicion, in respect. He had fought beside them. Protected them. Protected their matriarch. Protected their future. Rylan didn't care about the glory. He only cared that Kira was safe. Cyril Vora approached him, her steps sharp but steady. Her coat was torn from the fight. Dust streaked her skin, and a faint cut marked her cheek. Even so, she moved with calm authority. You handled yourself well, she said, her tone controlled but warm. You too, Rylan replied with a faint smile. Cyril almost smiled back, but controlled it. Vashari leaders rarely showed emotion in public. Her gaze softened as she added, Kira will want to see you when she wakes. Rylan nodded, relieved. Is she all right? She slept through the battle, Cyril said. The medical bay is sealed. She is safe. Rylan let out a long breath he didn't realize he was holding. Cyril studied him carefully, her eyes thoughtful. She seemed about to say something more personal, but the ship's commander interrupted. Matriarch, the officer said respectfully, we have a political situation. The council has received news of your guest. Rylan didn't miss the tone. The officer was trying to be polite, but his eyes showed unease. A human soldier aboard the Dominion flagship was unheard of. Sorrel lifted her chin. What is the Council's response? They demand we bring the human to the capital at once. Some believe he kidnapped your daughter. Others fear he is a spy. Rylan kept his face neutral, though inside he felt frustration. He knew this accusation would come eventually. Sorrel turned to Rylan. You will come with me to the capital, but you will not stand alone. I didn't expect to, Rylan said quietly. I know how this looks. Sorrel's voice grew firm. I will speak for you. And Kira will as well. The truth will not be twisted. Her eyes held steady on his. Rylan nodded. Then let's face them together. The journey to the Veshari capital world lasted several hours. Rylan spent that time in a private observation room, while Sorrel handled damaged systems and updated the Council. Kira woke midway through the travel. She spotted Rylan the moment she entered the room. Rylan. She ran to him, her heeled leg slightly stiff but functional. Rylan knelt to greet her. How are you feeling, kid? He asked gently. She wrapped her small arms around him. Safe. With you. Sorrel stood in the doorway, watching the scene. Her expression was unreadable, but something inside her shifted again. A human protecting her daughter trusting a human, her own heart, softening toward an enemy she once hated. War had created walls. Rylan had broken one without even trying. Sorrel cleared her throat softly. Kira, we must prepare. The Council is waiting. Kira took Rylan's hand. Rylan comes too. Sorrel nodded. He will. The capital world of Veshar was breathtaking. Towers made of crystal-like stone rose toward the sky, glowing faintly with inner light. Floating platforms drifted between buildings like silent birds. The air itself smelled clean, filled with the scent of soft minerals. As the silent crown descended, Rylan felt dozens of eyes on him from holoscreens broadcasting the arrival. His presence caused a storm of attention. Some curious, some fearful, some angry. He kept calm. The only thing he feared was losing the fragile trust he had built with Kira and with Sorrel. The landing ramp lowered. Sorrel emerged first, Kira at her side. Rylan followed closely behind. A wave of murmurs swept through the gathered crowd. A human soldier walking beside their matriarch. Armored, unbound, trusted. It was a sight that challenged everything they believed. Inside the council hall, a wide chamber with seats rising in a circle, leaders watched in silence. Their eyes sharpened as Cyril approached the center with Kira and Rylan. Counselor Vethon, an elder with deep-set eyes, leaned forward. Matriarch Sorrel, he said, explain why a Terran soldier stands beside you like an honored guest. Sorrel did not bow, did not look away, because he saved my daughter's life. Because without him, she would have died alone on the battlefield. Vethon narrowed his eyes. Or he kept her to gain favor, or leverage. Kira stomped her small foot. No. Rylan saved me. He carried me. He gave me food. The hall went silent. No one had expected the child to speak so boldly. Sorrel placed a protective hand on Kira's shoulder. You heard her. He saved her. He stayed beside her until I found them. He did what many of our own soldiers failed to do. Rylan swallowed softly. He had not expected her to defend him so fiercely. Another counselor sneered. Humans are unpredictable. Dangerous. He could still be a spy. Rylan stepped forward. I'm not a spy. I didn't come here by choice. I crashed. The counselors whispered among themselves. Counselor Vethon finally asked, What do you want, human? Rylan took a breath. To go home. But only when I know Kira is safe. And only when Sorrel allows it. Sorrel's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected that, Rylan continued. I won't leave if it puts her at risk. Those simple words caused a shift in the room. Even the counselors could not deny the sincerity in his voice. Sorrel turned to the assembly. This human risked everything for my child. That means something. It must mean something. She stepped closer to Rylan. And I will not allow him to be punished or used as a tool of fear. A long silence followed. Then Counselor Vethon exhaled. Very well. The Dominion will not harm him. But what do you intend to do with him, Matriarch? Keep him on your flagship as a symbol? Cyril paused. Her answer surprised everyone. Even herself, even Rylan. I intend, Cyril said carefully, to offer him a place here. To serve as protector to my daughter. And as an advisor between our peoples. Rylan blinked. Advisor? He repeated softly. Cyril met his eyes. You understand humans better than any Veshari. And you have shown honor, courage, compassion. That is rare in war. Kira hugged Rylan's arm tightly, as if insisting the council agree. Some counselors murmured in shock. Others nodded slowly. Counselor Vathon tapped his staff. If the child trusts him, and the matriarch believes in him, then we accept. The hall echoed with the sound of the decision. Rylan Ward, enemy soldier, was no longer a threat. He was now a protector, a bridge, an ally. Cyril turned to him, her voice lowered to something almost private. You changed the fate of my daughter. And now, you may help change the fate of our people. Rylan's voice was steady. If you trust me, I'll do everything I can. For the first time, Cyril's expression softened into a real smile. Then welcome, Rylan Ward. Kira grinned and held both of their hands. In that moment, Rylan realized something simple but powerful. War could shape hatred. But human courage, simple, honest, stubborn courage, could reshape the stars. And because one human chose compassion over violence, because one alien mother opened her heart, the galaxy now had a chance for something neither side expected. A chance for peace.